What do we need to be lab testing for? What should we be pushing our doctors for the most? You want to do fasting, glucose, hemoglobin A1C, and insulin. Why? Because it gives you a well-rounded look at what your blood sugar is doing, which is one of the most important things as far as nutrition, diet, keeping your weight under control, and being metabolically healthy. The hemoglobin A1C is a 3-month look, has to do with your red blood cells and glycation, which means what sugar does in your body and your bloodstream. It's a good look at whether you're trending up or down over a 3-month period of time. The glucose is how are you responding right now to your recent ingestion. And if you're fasting, it's going to be a much easier look at it. It's going to be easier for me to know what's going on and your doctors. You could artificially look high. The hemoglobin A1C is a 3-month look, has to do with your red blood cells and glycation, which means what sugar does in your body and your bloodstream. It's a good look at whether you're trending up or down over a 3-month period of time. The glucose is how are you responding right now to your recent ingestion. And if you're fasting, it's going to be a much easier look at it. It's going to be easier for me to know what's going on and your doctors. You could artificially look high because you ate something or you put sugar or honey in your coffee, right? So fast, just water, nothing else. You do want to drink water though, so you don't look dehydrated. The other one is insulin. And obviously I talk about it all the time. You do not want super low glucose, super high insulin. You don't want them all three high. These are good numbers. So do those. We could go more in depth for blood test for blood sugar. Those are your main blood sugar markers: glucose, hemoglobin A1C, insulin. Another one you could ask for is HSCRP. It's a good marker for inflammation. It's high sensitivity, C-reactive protein. I've caught a lot of things on that alone, and then we go deeper and we look at other markers that I can do in another test, but get that one done. It's a $10 test. The other thing is vitamin D. You must know your vitamin D. And if you are below like a 40, you need to start taking vitamin D. It's a very simple fix. And yes, you can go out in the sun. Most of us should be getting sun. It's not going to cure a chronically low or an acutely low vitamin D though. You need a lipid panel. What is lipid panel? It's cholesterol. You need the breakdown. If your doctor is just giving you total cholesterol, that doesn't help you because you could be very high in HDL, the so-called healthy cholesterol, and very low in the LDL, the so-called lousy. I say so-called because I don't believe in the whole thing they got going there, and I have that in other videos, but you at least need to know, is it triglycerides? And if your triglycerides are the high one, you guys, you have a blood sugar, you have a carbohydrate issue. Your lipid panel is your cholesterol with the breakdown: HDL, LDL, triglycerides, and total cholesterol. You also want your CBC. Everybody's heard it like on TV shows, CBC, comp metabolic. You need both of those. You also need a differential. Why? Because as you're breaking down your CBC, which is your blood count, it's complete blood count, your red blood cells, your hemoglobin, your hematocrit, your white blood cells, you also want to look at inside your white blood cells, how are those broken down? Lymphocytes, eosinophils, basophils, and neutrophils. You need to know, do you have an infection? Is it acute or is it chronic? Has it been going on a long time? Is your immune system super activated or super low? And then is it probably bacterial or viral, or is it in your gut? I see high eosinophils all the time. It's allergies and or gut issues, parasites, things like that. From those, I know to test deeper. I also have a lab test evaluation I started devising 30 years ago, and it works. It works pretty dang well for everybody to be able to create a custom panel, and then based on those results, take that basic lab test, put those results in, anything out of range, answer some questions that I've asked that are pretty specific because I've seen them over tens of thousands of blood tests over almost 3 decades. And then it tells you what you should be testing because nobody can afford to test everything. Well, some people can, but nobody wants to do that. They're not that fun, but it is fun to look at them, figure out what's going on, devise a plan, and get you fixed so that you feel better. Back to the blood panel. You've got your comprehensive metabolic panel after the CBC. You've got calcium, you've got albumin and globulin, which help us see like, what is your diet like and are you absorbing? How's your digestion? It also could be markers for kidney, liver. We're looking at total protein. We're looking at your electrolytes, sodium, potassium, CO2, chloride, your anion gap, which is shows me if you're super acidic or alkaline. And that's important. Like, I've had people come to me really, really sick and not know it, feel bad. And then I see these things on their lab panel that is not that extensive and send it back to their doctor who either wasn't testing for these things or is not paying attention. And Luckily, they did testing with me and we find these things. And the doctor's like, oh, I guess I have to, like this, dig a little deeper and pay attention, which is nice. I'm not saying all doctors suck. I'm saying they are overworked, the system is broken, and it is not a preventative system. It is a system that thinks that diet doesn't really matter. It is a system where I have doctors telling me lab testing doesn't matter. Well, really, because it's the only way that you're doing a diagnosis. So that's a little scary for me. So we have your comp metabolic. It also includes bilirubin if it's a good one, and some kidney markers, BUN, creatinine. Alk Phos is a great marker of a couple different things. If it's really low, we're looking at antioxidant issues. If it's really high, sometimes I've seen that with cancer and tumors and things like that. We have to be watching these things. We're looking at a liver panel, and a liver panel should be 3 values. I talk about this a lot. It used to be even 20 years ago, even 15 years ago, and now they took the GGTP out, which I sometimes call GGT. I think this is ridiculous. That is such a great marker for gallbladder issues, as well as helping us decide with ALT and AST whether it's a liver, a heart, or a gallbladder, like a bile duct, or having to do more with digestion and fat breakdown. ALT, AST, GGT must be on your liver panel, unless you don't have a gallbladder, and then you can do without the GTP, but hopefully you still do. But the other one you want, if your cholesterol is out of range or you have any issues with it or familiar concerns, you want to do the deeper cholesterol, which is also called a fractionization or an NMR. I've seen it as part of a cardio IQ, and it's not that expensive. I've seen it as low as $60 with some labs, and I am always trying to create the best custom panels for my people and anybody who needs these panels. They should be readily available. They should not be gate kept, but they are. Okay, so we've got your CMP, your CBC, your liver panel, your blood sugar, and now we are including a full thyroid panel. Why? Because a TSH really does nothing. It's only catching like 2% of issues. I see so many people who have very low sluggish thyroids, which means the TSH is high, or very, very low TSH, which means their thyroid is hyper and Graves, and that can be deadly. As well as a super low thyroid can feel like crap. Your hair will fall out, you lose your eyebrows, you get fat, like you're sluggish, you can't remember anything, you get dry skin and brain fog, you lose your brightness and your color. So you want a full thyroid panel. Again, it's under $100 for that panel, and if it's included in a bigger panel, it should be $50. The other things, you want to add a full iron panel. Full iron panel at least once every 5 years if you're a menstruating woman or a man, because recently I had an athlete with very high iron. I had 2 people with high iron, a man and a lady. The athlete, I think it's high oxidation, but it could be other issues. He had some heart markers that were high too. So do not pass on a full iron panel. It is serum iron, total iron binding capacity, or UIBC, which is a similar number. Ferritin for sure, especially if you're losing your hair or you have super low energy. Ferritin must be tested, and percent saturation, which is how much of the iron is going where you need it to go. And a lot of times these vitamin numbers and a lot of these proteins and stuff go back to faulty digestion and gut issues. You've got your iron panel, your full thyroid panel, vitamins and mineral levels. I at least do the vitamin D. As I said, it's a must have. You must do it. If you know yours is healthy above 40, 45, and you're not taking vitamin D, then you can leave it for maybe every 2 years. If you don't know or it needs work, I would be doing it every 6 months. It should not be more than $30 unless, like I said, if you're doing a full panel. The other vitamins are B12, folate, and minerals. I do magnesium, I do calcium. Occasionally I will do zinc if it's not too expensive, and if I really think the person needs it, I usually just give them zinc if I see the indicators of low immunity, symptoms, and lab tests. We just start giving them some zinc, which I've never had a problem with. That is the basic test that you need. I know I've created one that is $245, and it does contain that deeper cholesterol. So you get all of that and the deeper cholesterol for $245. That is my cost to the lab that I negotiated with. I hope they're locked in because I'm tired of these prices getting raised. That's just a reference point for you guys to know what it should cost you when you're looking online. If you would like this list, comment somewhere and I'll make sure that you get it. I always do uric acid on my clients for the first time because it's a very diet related value that is very easily fixed, and it gives us a lot of information. Here are the lab tests that you should be asking your doctor for no matter what at every physical at least once, and then you can sort of adjust your schedule from there. Okay, thyroid testing. If you haven't had a real full thyroid panel, it shouldn't be more than $50 to $75, and it should be less if they're adding it to a good blood panel. You should be asking your doctor that because TSH does not tell us enough about how your thyroid function. If you have brain fog, if you're not losing weight, if you're losing your eyebrow, and if you have sluggishness, brain fog, dry skin, these are all signs of thyroid problems. They can be. These can all be signs of thyroid problems, and the only way to really test is to get the right lab testing done. A TSH is just not enough. It doesn't tell us about how your thyroid is functioning. Here are the lab tests that you want. You want the TSH, you want the free T3 and the free T4. T3 and T4 that are not free, that don't say free, are not in their active form. It's not really helping us because we don't know what's bioavailable and there for your body to use. So you want TSH, free T3, free T4. I would like to get a reverse T3, and I almost always do thyroid antibodies, at least the TPOs and the TGs, which is what those are called, so that you can see if you are having autoimmune issues. Mine includes 8 tests. It includes regular T3 and T4. It includes T3 uptake and the antibodies, as well as reverse T3. What is reverse T3? It's like your body kind of putting the brakes on thyroid. And I've seen it in cases of Graves. I've seen it with autoimmune things. The point is that whole thyroid panel is a $50 add-on on my panels, and it's part of my basic blood panel, which is about $245. It has a full thyroid. It has a full iron. It doesn't have hormones. Hormones are an add-on, and I'll do hormones next. And if you're going to do hormones, you should do the thyroid and the hormones together because technically they all are part of the endocrine system. They work together. Then you also need to do the vitamin D, the B12. And one thing I do add to my thyroid panel always is iodine. At least once every 5 years, check your iodine. I have found it super low, like in myself. No wonder my thyroid meds weren't working. I had no iodine. If you are super low in iodine, you cannot cleave T4 to the active form T3, and you're not going to feel you have that thyroid hormone circulating, but you're not going to have it to use for your metabolism. And that right there can help a lot. But don't just take iodine. Test it first, because if you're too high, that could be causing a Graves-like syndrome where your thyroid is just too hyper. You don't want that either. We need to be in balance. So an iodine test is about a $30 add-on. So that is a little expensive for one value, but it is on my panel that I do on new clients, and it's worthwhile. So I traded some things for others to get the most important things on the panel. So hopefully that helps you. Okay, for lab testing your cholesterol, if you have any issues, you need to go a little deeper. The NMR, or the fractionated cholesterol, is apolipoproteins, ApoA1, ApoB. There is an ApoE4 on many of them, which is a genetic marker that has to do with Alzheimer's risk. I suggest everybody do that at least once. The ones I run have a lipoprotein markers, the SD-LDL, which is small, dense LDL. It is part of your cholesterol. It's kind of like how your body transports these fats and cholesterol, and Lp(a). Remember that cholesterol is not in itself a bad thing. Your cholesterol is important for your hormones, your moods, making neurotransmitters. I say this all the time. If you are on a statin and you are having brain fog and depression and low motivation and erectile dysfunction since you went on it, you might need to look at your cholesterol, your fractionization, and look at other reasons for the way your cholesterol is being stored. High cholesterol does not equal heart disease. It has nothing to do with it. And I've gotten to that before, so I won't go deep into it unless somebody asks me a question or something. Again, you need to eat cholesterol. We need to be eating eggs and meats and healthy foods with cholesterol, because it was blamed for heart disease, but it is not what causes heart disease. What causes heart disease is a crappy diet, a sedentary lifestyle, and damaging our vascular system with plaque that gets stored in there. That is what causes heart disease. It is not cholesterol. I think most people know that, so I won't go too deep into it. I wanted you to know what is on that panel. And again, $50 panel is what it should cost. And when combined with a bigger overall panel, you should be able to get a great panel for around $250, maybe 300 the most. Always ask your insurance if your doctor's ordering it for you, what they are going to cover and not cover, and make sure that your doctor has coded it, billed it correctly, given you the right diagnosis. Otherwise, insurance is not going to cover it. And the doctors know that. I think that's why they don't want to order all these things that I request. Somehow, when I put it on my letterhead and request it, they're more likely to do it. I pay a lot for insurance. I have no problem advocating for myself. And if I have to, I will pay cash, but I don't think that's fair when I pay so much for insurance. But I'm telling you guys, your health is worth more than arguing with a doctor who probably doesn't really know what they're doing as far as prevention versus their medical disease model of healthcare. Okay, for your blood panel, hormones. What lab hormones do you want to order if you're having issues or just to check up and be preventative? A full hormone panel should have estradiol, FSH, and LH. And that's for females, but the men are going to have the estrogen as well. DHEAS, which is serum DHEA, cortisol, hopefully first thing in the morning, progesterone, eye test for parathyroid hormone and prolactin, dihydrotestosterone, especially important for men if you're having hair loss, pregnenolone, free and total testosterone, super important. Don't just do serum testosterone. You need to know, just like the thyroid, we do free T3 and T4, you need free testosterone to see what is actually bioavailable for your body. Now, blood is not the best way to test hormones. So I usually, if there's any symptoms or issues on my lab test evaluation form, then I'm doing either a saliva or a Dutch urine test, depending on the exact needs of the person. One is more expensive than the other usually, and it depends on if you're cycling, if you're in menopause, if you're female or male. But I'm looking for the best affordability, but also like, what do we need to test to get for me to get the information I need to be able to help you. And blood hormones, it's a good idea to do them at the same time as you're doing a saliva or a urine hormone. And what I'll usually do is we will test and then we will retest in 6 to 12 months. And at that time, if the person is not feeling better, not having symptoms, not losing weight, then we will do another one, a saliva or a Dutch at the same time. So we have all of them to look at. And always write down where you are in your cycle, ladies, so your practitioner has that information. The hormones on a panel, you want the estradiol. If it will break down to further estrogens, do that. For women, FSH, LH. For men, dihydrotestosterone. Some labs just do them all, but most are breaking it down by gender, what hormones you have. You want DHEA, you want cortisol, progesterone. I do prolactin and parathyroid. I've actually found quite a few issues with tumors and weird hormonal issues this way. They're not very expensive. You're doing a hormone panel. We're also looking at hormones in relationship to each other. So the more information, the better. I do pregnenolone because it's a master precursor like DHEA to other hormones. And testosterone, the big one for men, always do total and free. If you can only do one, do the free. Always do total testosterone and free testosterone. The free is more important as it's the bioavailable. And I have a lot of my clients do a sex hormone binding globulin, also called SHBG. Super important because if your hormones are low or normal, but your SHBG is super high, that protein is blocking your hormones from being effective in your body, which usually is due to an autoimmune dietary issue like gluten. When I see that, hormone issues, and then I'm looking at gut, immune system, things like that. So be sure you test for all these things, and including the SHBG, which many doctors miss, and a full thyroid panel if you're going to do this.